Zanil had always believed in love. When she married Themba, she gave her whole heart, and everything else too. She left her good job, distanced herself from friends, and poured all her time and energy into supporting his dreams. She cooked his meals, cheered at his events, and smiled beside him at every business dinner. In public, they looked like the perfect couple. People called them powerful, lucky, even inspiring. But behind closed doors, the truth was far from perfect. What Zanil didn't know was that while she was sacrificing her comfort for their future, Themba was living a lie. He laughed behind her back with another woman, a younger, flashier one who knew all about Zanil and didn't care. In fact, the two of them often joked about how clueless she was. Themba had already started planning his exit. His goal wasn't just to leave Zanil, it was to leave her with nothing. No money, no home, no support. He thought she was too soft, too dependent, too loyal to fight back. He thought he had her completely fooled. Zanil, though, still believed in their love. She had no idea the man she had trusted for years was playing a dirty, cruel game. Every hug, every "I love you," every shared smile, it was all a perfect illusion. And the saddest part? She had given up so much, never imagining that the person she trusted most would be the one to break her. It happened on an ordinary Thursday. Zanil was cleaning up around the house when she heard a ping on Themba's phone. Normally she wouldn't touch it. She respected his privacy, trusted him deeply. But something in her heart pulled her to pick it up. Maybe it was a woman's instinct. Maybe it was fate. The screen was still lit when she reached it, a voice note from an unsaved number. She tapped play without thinking. The voice was clear. A woman laughing softly, teasingly. "I can't wait until she's out of the picture," the voice said. "You said you'll finally be free by next month. Don't forget we agreed. No money for her." Then Themba's voice replied, chuckling. "She's clueless. She won't see it coming." Zanil froze. The world seemed to stop. Her legs went weak. Her heart pounded in her chest like it wanted to escape. That moment broke something deep inside her. Not just her heart, but the version of herself who believed Themba would always protect her. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the cruelty, the planning, the betrayal. After everything she had given up for him, he was preparing to leave her with nothing, and laughing about it. She didn't cry. Not then. She sat in silence, staring at the phone, letting the truth settle like dust after a storm. It would have been easy to scream, to confront him, to demand answers. But Zanil didn't do any of that. Not yet. Instead, she wiped her tears quietly that night and smiled like everything was fine. She cooked dinner. She asked about his day. She kissed him goodnight. And while he slept peacefully beside her, Zanil didn't sleep at all. Her mind was racing. She was done being the loyal, silent wife. But she wasn't going to fall apart. She was going to be smart. That night marked the real breaking point. Not the kind that leaves a person shattered, but the kind that sharpens them. Zanil decided she wasn't going to be his victim. She was going to be his lesson. While Themba was out having secret dinners and whispering lies into another woman's ear, Zanil was working in silence. He thought she was just a quiet housewife, dependent on him for everything. He believed she spent her days watching TV, cooking, waiting for him to come home. He had no idea what she was really doing behind that calm smile. Late at night, after he fell asleep, Zanil would pull out her old laptop. She had started small, just researching beauty ingredients, learning how to make natural skincare products from scratch. She watched tutorials, took online business courses, and even taught herself basic digital marketing. Slowly, piece by piece, she built a brand. Not under her name, of course. She used a fake identity, a whole new persona. No one knew it was her. She made sure of that. She started by selling handmade lip balms and body butters online. Then she moved into face oils, scrubs, and full skincare kits. Her products started gaining attention, not just for their quality, but for the beautiful branding and personal touch. Orders increased. Her followers grew. She partnered with influencers, ran quiet ads, and hired freelancers to help her scale. All this from the corner of their shared bedroom, while Themba snored beside her. And the money? She didn't spend a cent. Every dollar was transferred straight into a private offshore account under her alias. A friend in Dubai helped her set it up. No names linked to her, no trails back to their shared finances. It was all hers. Themba had no idea that the woman he mocked for being too dependent was now earning more than he did on some months. While he laughed with his mistress about how easy it would be to leave Zanil broke, she was already protecting her future. Quietly, strategically, brilliantly. She never bragged. She never let it slip. Even when he looked her in the eye and made her feel small, Zanil stayed calm. Because she knew what he didn't. She was building an empire in silence. Themba thought he had it all planned out. He walked into the house one evening with a smirk on his face and a thick envelope in his hand. Inside were the divorce papers, cold, final, cruel. He dropped them on the dining table like he was throwing away trash and said casually, "You should look these over. It's time we go our separate ways." Zanil looked up from her cup of tea. Her face didn't move. No anger. No tears. No begging. Just silence. Themba expected her to cry, to scream, to ask why. Maybe even to fight him for staying. But she didn't do any of that. She simply picked up the envelope, flipped through the pages slowly and nodded once. "Okay," she said calmly. "I'll sign." Themba blinked, confused. "You're not going to ask for anything?" "No," she replied. "I'll be fine." He didn't understand it. This wasn't the reaction he had imagined. He had pictured her breaking down, desperate to hold on. That's what he had told his mistress would happen. That Zanil would fall apart and he'd leave like a king. But instead, she signed the papers quietly that same night, without even reading every word. Her hands were steady, her eyes dry. Themba started getting irritated. "Why are you so calm?" he snapped. Zanil looked at him with a small, unreadable smile. "Because I've already let go," she said. She handed him the signed documents the next morning, neatly placed in an envelope, just like he gave them to her. No arguments. No drama. It was the cleanest ending he never saw coming. What Themba didn't know was that Zanil's silence wasn't weakness. It was power. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't sad. She had already seen this coming. And more importantly, she had already prepared for it. That quiet moment at the dining table was the first time he realized he couldn't control her anymore. And that thought scared him more than anything. Because now, for the first time, he couldn't predict her next move. But Zanil? She knew exactly what was coming. The day of the court hearing arrived, and Themba walked in like he had already won. He wore an expensive suit, flashed fake smiles, and sat beside his high-priced lawyer with confidence. In his mind, this was just a formality. He thought Zanil would ask for a few things, maybe the house, maybe some support, and he'd just deny it all. He believed she was still the same woman who depended on him, who'd fall apart without him. Zanil sat quietly across the room, dressed simply but gracefully. She didn't need to say much. Her lawyer looked calm, focused. Themba barely looked at her, too busy smirking and whispering to his lawyer. When it was time to speak, his lawyer stood and began listing what they called Zanil's demands, things they found laughable. "She wants full custody, the house, and a fair share of assets," he said with a chuckle, as if it were ridiculous. Themba leaned back in his seat, arms crossed, proud and smug. But then the judge held up a hand. "That won't be necessary," she said. The courtroom fell silent. Everyone turned toward the bench. The judge continued, flipping through her notes. "We've reviewed the financial disclosures. According to our findings, Mrs. Zanil Nankya is the sole owner of a profitable online business with international earnings, a verified net worth that surpasses Mr. Themba's, and documented evidence of independent income from the past 3 years." Themba's jaw dropped. He sat up straight, stunned. "What?" he muttered. The judge went on. "This court recognizes Mrs. Nankya's financial independence and contributions. Based on her documented stability, full custody is granted to her. The house remains in her name, as it was legally purchased through her business." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Themba looked completely lost, like someone had just pulled the floor from under him. His lawyer fumbled with his papers, clearly blindsided. Zanil didn't flinch. She just sat there, her face calm, her posture proud. Themba sat frozen in his chair. For the first time, he didn't have a smart comment, a smug look, or a fake smile. The courtroom had just heard the truth. Zanil wasn't the helpless woman he thought she was. She wasn't broken, desperate, or weak. She was a quiet storm. And now her secret was out for the whole world to see. As the judge continued speaking, it became clear just how wrong Themba had been. Zanil's online beauty business wasn't just doing well, it was thriving. Her brand had international sales, major partnerships, and a loyal customer base. Her bank records showed offshore savings, business investments, and income that had been flowing in steadily for years. In fact, the court confirmed that Zanil was now worth more than Themba and his girlfriend combined. You could hear a pin drop in the room. Themba's lawyer leaned over, whispering frantically, but it was too late. The damage was done. The judge looked at Zanil with quiet respect and read the final ruling. Full custody of the children was granted to her. The house, legally purchased under her business, would remain hers. There would be no spousal support because she didn't need a cent from Themba. And with those words, the power shifted completely. People in the courtroom looked at Zanil differently now. She wasn't just the woman who got cheated on. She was the woman who saw betrayal and chose not to fall apart. She moved with grace, planned in silence, and hit back with pure strategy. The judge even thanked her for how calmly she had handled the entire process, calling her a role model for resilience. Themba, on the other hand, looked small. His girlfriend sat in the back row, suddenly quiet, avoiding everyone's eyes. The man who once mocked Zanil's silence now had nothing to say. As she walked out of the courtroom, people stood. Some whispered her name. Some clapped softly. But Zanil didn't stop to soak it in. Themba had always thought he was the clever one, the one in control, the one calling all the shots. For years he laughed behind Zanil's back, mocking her loyalty, her silence, her soft heart. He thought she was weak. He thought she would crumble the moment he left. He never imagined she'd be the one to walk out stronger. But now in that courtroom, all of Themba's arrogance had disappeared. The smirk that used to sit on his face was gone. His confidence had cracked into pieces. The truth had hit him hard. Zanil was never dependent on him. In fact, she had built an entire empire right under his nose. And worse, she had never needed to shout, beg, or fight. She just outsmarted him, with calm, with patience, and with brilliance. His mistress, who once sat proudly in the back, now stared at the floor. No more whispering, no more sneaky smiles. As the judge read the final decision, she quietly picked up her handbag and slipped out of the courtroom, like someone who realized she had bet on the wrong man. She didn't even say goodbye. Themba was left sitting there. Not just alone but exposed. Everyone in that room had seen the real story now. He wasn't just the man who cheated. He was the man who underestimated his wife. The man who laughed while planning to betray her, and ended up being the fool in the end. Zanil didn't gloat. She didn't look back. She walked out with grace, not because she didn't feel the pain, but because she had already transformed it into power. And as she left, people whispered her name with respect. No one was talking about Themba anymore. His moment was over. Outside the courtroom, reporters and bystanders surrounded Zanil, but she stayed calm, smiling politely. Meanwhile, Themba stood alone in the hallway, watching everything slip away. His control, his image, his pride. In that moment, the laugh that had once come so easily to him finally died. And all that was left was silence and regret. By the next morning, Zanil's story was everywhere. Social media exploded with her name. People couldn't stop talking about the calm, graceful woman who walked out of court with her dignity and a secret empire. News outlets picked up the story almost instantly. Headlines read, "Wife outsmarts cheating husband with hidden business," and Zanil, the woman who turned betrayal into power. Within days, Zanil became a symbol, not just of strength but of quiet, clever survival. She didn't scream. She didn't drag her pain through the mud. She stayed silent, moved smart, and showed the entire country what it meant to rise with grace. People admired her not just for what she did, but for how she did it. Her inbox overflowed. Big magazines wanted to feature her. Radio stations begged for interviews. TV shows sent invites for talk segments and panel discussions. Business owners reached out with partnership deals. Women from all over the country messaged her. Some with tears, some with cheers, thanking her for giving them hope. One message read, "You gave me the courage to start over. Thank you for showing us we're not powerless." Another said, "You turned pain into purpose. You're a hero." Zanil, who had once been mocked and dismissed, was now at the center of a national conversation. People wanted to hear her voice. Learn from her. Stand with her. And she didn't let the moment go to waste. She accepted a few interviews, not to show off, but to share her journey. To remind women everywhere that staying silent doesn't mean you're weak. Sometimes it means you're preparing for something greater. Even brands wanted in. A major beauty retailer offered to stock her products. A local bank reached out about supporting women-led businesses through her story. She didn't rush into anything. She reviewed every offer with the same calm wisdom that got her through the storm. The woman who once sat in the shadows of her husband's career was now standing in her own spotlight. Zanil could have walked away quietly and lived her life in peace. She had her business, her children, her freedom, and the public's respect. But deep down, she knew her story wasn't just about her. It was about every woman who had ever felt stuck, trapped, or silenced. So instead of just celebrating her victory, she decided to turn it into something bigger, something that could help others. That's when she launched her foundation. The name was simple but powerful, the Second Light Foundation. Its mission? To help women secretly build emergency funds, escape toxic relationships, and rebuild their lives with dignity and power. Zanil used her own experience as the blueprint. She knew what it felt like to pretend everything was fine while living in fear. She knew how hard it was to save money behind closed doors, to plan quietly, to move smart without raising suspicion. The foundation started with workshops, teaching financial literacy, online business basics, and how to create safety plans. Then came digital tools like a discreet savings app that women could use without leaving a trail. She even partnered with banks willing to open anonymous emergency accounts for women in dangerous situations. Donations poured in. Brands that once ignored her now offered sponsorships. Volunteers signed up from every corner of the country. Survivors sent messages, asking how they could help others. Zanil's story had sparked a movement, and now she was leading it. She didn't do it for attention. She did it because she remembered how it felt to have no one to turn to. She remembered sitting in silence, pretending to be okay, while quietly planning her escape. And now she wanted to make sure no woman ever had to feel that alone again. What began as a painful betrayal had turned into something beautiful. An empire, yes, but also a lifeline. Zanil had gone from being just a wife to being a voice, a guide, a force for change. And the best part? She was just getting started. The lights were bright, the music soft, and the room filled with Nairobi's most powerful business leaders. It was the annual Women in Business Gala, an event where elegance met influence. And this year, the spotlight belonged to Zanil. She walked onto the stage in a floor-length black gown that shimmered with every step. Her hair was swept up, her smile calm and confident. The moment she appeared, the room erupted into applause. Cameras flashed. People rose to their feet. She was no longer just a name in the headlines. She was a living symbol of strength, strategy, and grace. As she stood at the podium, she took a breath and looked out over the crowd. That's when she saw him. Themba. He was sitting near the back, quiet, dressed in a plain suit that didn't carry the same shine it once did. He hadn't been invited directly. He was only there as a guest of someone else. He looked smaller somehow, not just in size but in presence. Once he used to own the room. Now he was just another face in the crowd. Their eyes met for just a second. Zanil didn't glare. She didn't frown. She simply smiled, slow, graceful, unbothered. The kind of smile that says, I survived. I rose. I won. She turned back to the microphone, thanked the audience, and gave a speech that left many wiping away tears. She spoke of pain, of silence, of rebuilding, and of power, the kind that doesn't shout but shines. And in that moment, surrounded by applause and admiration, Zanil had the final laugh. And it was silent, but unforgettable.